In this video, we're going to talk about how you can protect yourself from all of the bad viruses and malware and hackers out there. How can you tell your computer is infected? Well, basically, you could see if there are any odd messages or pop-ups that pop up. Some program icons are suddenly missing, or your browser takes you to strange places, or your computer is unusually slow, or its fan is very loud, or some antivirus programs suddenly stop working. Well, all of the above, any of these things could be a symptom of an infected PC. Now, you might wonder, say, why is it if your computer is slow? What does that mean? Well, the reason it's slow is because in the background, your virus is taking control and it's creating thousands of copies of the virus, and it's not paying too much attention to you. And while it's working so hard there, the processor gets really hot, which causes the fan to kick in. And I've seen some of my client computers where they are so loud, the fan is so loud, it sounds like a vacuum cleaner almost. So just be careful. Any of these things pop up, you know there's something wrong. Be careful. Okay, now what can you do? Well, if you can protect yourself from viruses, you can get antivirus software. There's a couple of programs for sale, Norton, McAfee, and Kaspersky. But be careful with Kaspersky because it's from the company is based in Russia, and there's a little people are not sure about how secure it is because the Russian government may be causing them to do certain things. There's some free software that you could use, which is pretty good. But actually nowadays, this Windows Defender, which is included with Windows, Microsoft has finally come out with a pretty good antivirus program. So it's included with Windows. You don't need to really do anything. It's set up and it works really nicely. So that's pretty good. In fact, some of the experts say you really don't need anything else. In fact, if you use something else, a third-party program like McAfee or whatever, it can actually decrease your security. Okay, so use Windows Defender. It should work really nicely. How does antivirus software work? Well, basically, it looks for the virus signature. This is little pieces of code that they're like fingerprints. They're unique pieces of code that it can spot, and it scans all of your incoming email to look for these things. And every once in a while, it also does a scan. It'll scan your whole PC and check it and make sure everything's okay. And if it does find anything, it doesn't delete those programs because it could be a mistake. So it basically puts us into a quarantine, which means that if it is a good program, because sometimes it does make a mistake. If it is a good program, you could take it out of the quarantine and keep using it. If these things that the programs that the virus thought was a virus, the antivirus program thought was a virus, but it's not. Okay, so there's another program here which is really good called Malwarebytes Free. Okay, this basically, it doesn't really protect your computer, but if you do get infected, it basically cleans it up. It scans it, finds it, and removes it. And when you buy it, they will install a premium version on your computer, which does a lot more stuff there, but you don't need that. The free one works fine. So just ignore the offers, the pleas to pay for it. You don't need that. Just wait for 2 weeks, and then you'll get the free version, which is fine. That's all you need. And it does a really quick scan, which is very, very nice. If your computer is infected, okay, the first thing to do is run a scan with your antivirus program. Do a scan with Malwarebytes, because sometimes Malwarebytes will find things that the antivirus program missed. And in the worst case, if things are really bad, okay, what you will need to do is reinstall your operating system and all your programs and all your backed up data, and that's going to take hours. So hopefully you never reach that point, but just be careful because it does happen once in a while. Yeah, a lot of you have Macintosh computers at home, and are they immune? Well, mostly so far. I mean, there's been a few attacks here and there, but so far it's been pretty good. If you're using cross-platform apps like Java or Adobe Reader or Flash, they could be vulnerable. Okay, they could have a problem, but just be sure that you update those. And we never know. There could be more viruses in the future. You may wonder, why are Macs immune so far? Well, basically it's numbers. If you're going to take the time to create a virus, who would you create it for? I mean, would you go after the Windows, which has 90% of the market and which is usually in big companies with lots of money? Or would you go after Macs, which are only like 5 or 10% of the market, and they're kind of like at people's homes and used by artists and stuff like that. So you'd probably go for Windows. So the Macs have been pretty good. They've they've been fairly safe so far. Chromebooks are pretty good too. They, of course, they're inexpensive and they're very well protected. And the great, if they ever happen to do get infected, it has this great feature. You can just press a button and it reinstalls the operating system from scratch, and everything's fine. And it's great. It works really. I wish Windows could do the same thing. All right, our tablets, things like the iPad, how are they? Well, mostly they're pretty well protected. They're inside their ecosystem, either Apple's App Store or the Google Play environment, and they usually the software in there is very well protected and careful. They do a good job curating it, but you never know. At some point in the future, hackers may figure a way to get in there and do bad things. So be careful about that. And how about phones? Same thing. They're in a fairly good environment, so you want to be good at that. Now, there are reports about people coming up with systems where if you get a message and you click on the link in that message, it could infect your phone. So again, be careful. Any strange message, take it with a huge grain of salt. Be very wary of anything that's clicked there. Just try not to. Be very careful. Don't trust anything you get in your email system. Okay, be very careful. Now, one thing you really should do is make sure that your programs are up to date. No program is perfect. They all have vulnerabilities, little mistakes that the programmers made, and the hackers are constantly trying to discover what those mistakes are so they can break into the system. So programs will find these mistakes and they'll come out with patches. So make sure that you use those patches. Make sure your programs are up to date and do it automatically. Don't do it manually because you'll always forget. So do it manually. Have your programs automatically update so they're always protected as best they can. Now, what we talked about what we talked about previously was protecting you from viruses. There's other things like worms, and how do you protect yourself from that? Well, you need firewalls. Firewalls are basically, it's like having a wall around your house to keep things from coming in. Things like worms and hackers. Now, where do you get them? Well, nowadays we have Windows and OS X have them included finally, so they work pretty well. In the old days, we actually had to go out and buy them. Now they're pretty good. And also our routers and cable modems are pretty good. They work very well as firewalls too. And basically what they do is they block the logical ports. Remember, there are thousands of ports on your computer, and it ignores any requests that come from the outside. It only lets things that come in that you request, okay, which is good. Right? And what it does, it makes all those thousands of ports on your computer appear to be non-existent. It puts them into stealth mode. It's like if you could take your house and make it invisible so that when the burglar drives through the neighborhood, they don't even see your house. They don't even realize there's a house there, so they can go up and test the doors or the windows. Okay, it works like this. Basically, it just blocks all these bad stuff from coming in. And if you were to log your router and just see all this stuff. There's like hundreds of things every day, these bad messages coming in trying to infect your computer. But fortunately, the router blocks it so it doesn't come in. One of the techniques it uses is this thing called network address translation. And basically, it's the fact it is based on the fact that your computer has a different IP address than it does to the outside world. Inside your home network there, it has one address. Outside, it has another. It's like you and your family, okay? In your family group, you have a nickname. In the outside world, you have your official name. And if someone were to address you by your official name, you know that they're not part of your family. So you take them... So you have to treat them differently than you would a family member. And basically the same thing. So your router, basically it knows you as your home name, your inside name. And if it sees an outside name, it treats it much more carefully. Is your computer secure? Basically, there's a good way to test it. You can go to this site called grc.com, which is run by Gibson Research Corporation. And go to this Shields Up thing, and it'll test. It'll look at all the 1,000 ports on your computer and see, check it, make sure that they're all safely shut and not vulnerable to attacks. How do you protect your email accounts? Well, why is an email account and a target? Why is that a problem? Well, consider that messages on your email system reveal private information. Okay, that's one thing. Also, your email account serves as a backdoor to all of your other accounts. Remember, what happens when you forget the password for your bank account? What happens? Usually the bank sends you what? It sends you a message to reset your password. Well, if the bad guys have access to your email account, they could go to your bank account and they could try to, say, "Oh, I forgot my password." And the bank will send a reset message, and the bad guy will get the message, will reset your password, and you have no idea that's happening. And when you try to get into your account, you can't get in because you don't know what the password is anymore. So be careful. You want to protect your email as much as you protect any other account that you have. Sometimes different accounts will ask for security questions, okay? And this is basically pretty innocent. It's asking for the name of your first pet or your childhood nickname. And this is a way to reset your password to prove that you really are you. The problem is, though, is what? The problem is that this information, a lot of it's publicly available. It's on websites. So you want to be real careful. I never answer these questions truthfully. I always make up things. Of course, I write it down, but I don't put the real information on there because it's too easy for bad guys to figure out what that is. Another way they can get information is to set up these games on places like Facebook, and which kind of the purpose is to entertain you, but also to trick you into revealing what could be valuable security information. By just answering these innocent questions here, it reveals a lot of information about yourself, which could lead the bad guys to figure out what your passwords could be. Okay, Wi-Fi protection. Okay, we a lot of us use Wi-Fi, and the question is, have you ever accessed your bank account using an unsecured Wi-Fi connection? Well, I hope the answer is no. Okay, I hope the answer is no because of this. These devices are called pineapples, and what they are basically is something that can sit and sniff all of the Wi-Fi communication going on around them. So while you're sitting at Starbucks or McDonald's and you're on your computer, just be aware that at the next table could be someone with one of these devices, and they could be listening in on all of the communication that you're sending from your laptop. Be very careful about that. Okay, so when you do communicate with someone on your laptop using Wi-Fi, be sure it's a HTTPS connection. Remember, the S stands for what? Stands for secure. Hypertext HTTP, of course, stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And use a VPN. What's a VPN? VPN is a virtual private network. Okay, this is basically a piece of software you put on your computer. And what it does is it encrypts all of your communication between you and this company, whether it's TunnelBear or Hotspot Shield or whatever. And so if someone were listening in on your Wi-Fi connection, they would see just a bunch of gibberish. They would not know what's going on there. Another advantage of using one of these services here is that you could bypass what's called geo-blocking. And what that means is, like, for example, if I just go to a website, if I go to England, go to the BBC, the television station, the BBC website there. Now, if I was in England, I could watch British television there because I was a British resident and I was able to do that. But when I go there from America, it spots me immediately as someone from America and it won't let me do that. But if I use TunnelBear, for example, I can have my signal come out at TunnelBear's facility in London, and then I will look like I live in Britain, and I would be able to watch TV there. Okay, same thing with other countries. So you could do that. Another thing to be aware of, another advantage of using this is that your ISP keeps a record of every website you go to. Okay. Now, the reason they do that is they sell that information to advertisers. So if you want to hide that information, what you could do is use one of these VPNs. In that case, your ISP, the cable company or whatever, doesn't know where you're going. Okay, just sees a bunch of gibberish going by. Okay, now we talked about a number of different ways you could protect yourself from the bad guys and bad software out there. But there's one thing we haven't touched on yet, which is the most important, and that we will cover in our next video.